Just after 3:30 a.m. on July 19th, in the Canadian city of Surrey, British Columbia, Stephen Falters awakens after calls from an alarm company and fire department about an incident unfolding at his church.
When I got to our church, it was a very difficult scene.
Video shot by a neighbor around 4:30 shows St. George Coptic Orthodox Church fully engulfed. Faltas is a board member at the church.
The street was completely closed. Approximately 4 or 5 fire trucks, all fighting the blaze, police cars. The scene was quite dramatic, surreal, to be honest.
It's the latest in a string of arson or vandalism against churches across Canada.
To hit 43 churches, and 10 were hit in a single day. In Calgary, 10 churches, one city, one day. Shocking.
Those 10 incidents happening in Alberta province.
A pillar of the community over a century years old, reduced to rubble overnight in a blaze.
Where an officer with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police tells CBN News they have deemed the acts as suspicious.
We are actively looking for suspects so that we can hopefully hold those who committed the acts accountable for the damage and the turmoil that they've caused.
Calgary police releasing photos of several suspects wanted in their investigation.
When a faith community is targeted for vandalism or arson, it not only impacts those directly affected, but leaves others in the same faith feeling unsafe.
The arson and vandalism follows revelations of hundreds of unmarked graves at former boarding schools for Indigenous children, many which were Catholic-run. After the discovery, churches began to burn across Canada, and although most of the churches attacked have been Catholic, several non-Catholic congregations also suffered damage.
It's tragic that churches are being caught in the crossfire of a long and difficult political process that we as in the Orthodox community hasn't been involved with.
While Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calls burning of churches an unacceptable response to the unmarked Indigenous graves, Conservative talk show host Ezra Levant says any comments from Canadian national leaders to the church attacks has been tepid at best.
You've got churches under attack all around, and frankly, no one willing to stand up for them because that's not politically correct. If these were mosques or synagogues, they'd have 100 champions. But Christians, I'm afraid, are the last acceptable group in Canada to discriminate against, even with violence and arson.
While few are standing up for the Christian community, some of the rhetoric denouncing Christians has been harsh. Recently, the leader of British Columbia's Civil Liberties Association tweeted, "Burn it all down," a post that led eventually to her resignation. Gordon?
George, I've got to ask, is it okay to criticize? And it seems to be that if you're a Christian, the attitude is you deserve this kind of treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what church leaders, multiple church leaders I spoke to said, listen, how is it possible that you can burn 10 churches in the city of Calgary? Calgary is not a remote town city in Canada. It is a major city with surveillance cameras all over the place, 10 churches in one day. And so far, I asked the spokesman for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is there any attempt to create a national investigation looking at this? Was not just in Alberta or British Columbia, this was happening across the country. 52 churches so far have either been burnt to the ground or vandalized. There is no national task force that's looking into the situation. And as Ezra Levant said, if this was mosques, if these were mosques or synagogues that were burnt like this, vandalized like this, with these many numbers, there would be hundreds of people championing, stepping over each other to come out and denounce and to side with those places of worship that endured such acts.
Well, we've had numerous reports on CBN News about Canadian churches that stayed open during the pandemic. They were already under attack before the arson started. So Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, in the province of, as you mentioned, in the province of Alberta, 3 pastors who they were arrested during the height of the pandemic. They made all the necessary health precautions, safety precautions, and despite all of those, which were very, very rigorous, the authorities came in and hauled the church pastor to jail. In one situation, they stormed the church during Easter weekend, and in fact, the response from the pastor went viral. He told them to get out of their place of worship, saying this was the most important week for Christians, and how could they come in the middle of the service, even though, Gordon, this particular church had done all the necessary, performed all the necessary precautions to keep congregants safe.
How have church leaders been responding, particularly those whose churches have been burned down? Yeah,
Stephen Falter said to us in the interview, at the end of my interview with him, I asked him, how do you feel about what has happened to your church? Obviously, I should mention that the St. George Coptic Church was not just a congregation for Egyptian Copts, but also Eritreans, Syrians, Iraqis, all of those who had escaped persecution in the Middle East, came to Canada, never imagined that such a thing would happen to their own church in Canada. Stephen Falter said to me, quote, "The only thing that we can say to those perpetrators is that as Christian believers, we forgive you." He forgave the perpetrators and said, we know that, as time goes on, that although today may be a day of mourning, Gordon, he said, God will provide, and tomorrow will be a day of joy.
Well, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Amen.
George, thanks for all the insights. You
You're
can
welcome.
always get the latest on this story and more by downloading the CBN News Channel app today. Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.